Now, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Image and Fashion Director of IFA Paris. Okay. Now, Jean-Marc Chauve, if I say that correctly, okay, is going to talk to us about the robots and if the robots, if robotics is the artisan of the future. Okay. So first, because we have a new roster of students, I would like us to introduce a little bit what you've done so far. Mm-hmm. We have a little bit there on the board, but it will be nice to hear from you.
Just so quickly, I've studied marketing, finance, sociology, and semiology of fashion, then fashion design, and then I worked for a trend agency called Nelly Hodi. Mm-hmm. After I worked for Martha Margiela, and after I became a consultant and started to work with IFA and some other brand, and right now I work for a brand like Galeries Lafayette, but also Chinese brand and stuff too. Apart my work here at IFA. So.
Okay, great. Now, could you define to us, as you are training new fashion designers, and you were working at Martha Margiela, which is the quintessential brand about recycling, sustainability, deconstruction, creativity, no boundaries. The sky's the limit. Last year's exhibition was a smash hit at Galliera because it gave hope. You would see the collections and you will understand that there's so much more to give. So how would you define a fashion designer today?
I think there is not one definition because there are so many different fashion designers right now, and we can see that they are very successful fashion designers who are marketing genius, and nothing else, but it works, and because some brands needs more, communication and marketing things than, really creativity or imagine all the time new products. There are some designers who are good artisans, who are just into designing the perfect volume and the perfect, sleeves and these kind of things. And for example, someone that we don't put in this, group, but I think that is, for example, Eddie Sliman. Eddie Sliman has done the same thing since the beginning. this fitted jacket, but all his work is on finding the perfect black, the perfect fabric for the perfect product, the perfect, once again, armhole and this kind of things. And they are a fashion designer who want to express their universe, who have strong thing to say, and who use fashion as a way to express, universe, their idea, their vision of the universe. And of course, some of them are genius, like Alexander McQueen or something like that, And I would say there are some others that we are more, with an intellectual point of view, on want to discuss about the society, the world. And Martha Margiela was a bit this kind of designer, he was not, trying to make beautiful things. Everything was about thinking of what does it mean fashion now, what does it mean to consume fashion product, and try to create product around this idea, something very conceptual. So there are many different ways, to be a fashion designer right now.
So do we have more fashion designers today, or we have more creative officers?
I would say that the difference is that now we have a lot of creative officers. We are people who are just here to manage, teams and everything.
For me, it's shocking to call a fashion designer creative officer. Creative director, I understand, but creative officer, it means that you have a...
this idea of, a quite technical point of view of creativity, But there are people who are like that, and sometimes people who used to be fashion designer, I would say, like Raf Simon, now at Calvin Klein is a kind of creative officer, just manage teams, putting some ideas and kind of thing, and just that, So there is an evolution of the role in the industry, but there is also sometimes an evolution of the way people work, start as a small designer and become something else, So
As we're entering a completely different version of industrial revolution with robotics, and robotics, from medicine to athletics to artificial limbs to 3D printing, the idea of, to sex dolls, the idea of robotics is coming very strong. My question is, are we not already making human robots? Because if we think about it, an average ready-to-wear brand, maybe with the couture and menswear, produces about one collection every 40 days.
Yeah.
So isn't that a little bit robotic? You know, the idea of...
I don't know, because there are people, you know, who are happy with this, huge things going on. Some not, you know. So it's true that now, that creates a lot of issues, you know, issues for the creative teams. It's true, you know, because very few people are able to just follow, this kind of rhythm and everything. It's also create, I think, of course, consumption issue, because you have so many products that are made which are not bought or after destroyed, and of course it's push people to buy new things they don't even like or don't even desire and everything. And yes, at that moment we have at that thing. But the thing is that people are still not robot, because we see, you know, there are so many crises. Designer who leave the best jobs they can imagine to have one day as Ralph Simmons because of that, or, you know, nervous breakdowns, something like that. It's a proof that, you know, people are still not robots, you know, and if you push too much the rhythm and if you are too demanding to them, you know, they can't continue.
Is the industry becoming too demanding?
I think so. You know. For me, when you see, for example, now the turnover of, not all the industry, but especially for the luxury industry, normally we can imagine that luxury industry would be slow, take time to do beautiful things and everything, and it's the opposite, you know. And when you see now the turnover of the main luxury brands, it's quite crazy. And at one moment you see, and you know, it's still more and more. What we don't know, but people say about, you know, Eddie Sliman at Celine is that his objective is to take, you know, Eddie Sliman at €1 billion of turnover and take it like, don't know exactly, but like in 5 years to €3 billion, you know, which is crazy. At one moment, you know, it's this idea that you could cover the world with luxury products. Not sure. Nobody can buy every month, this kind of luxury product. So I know that at one moment there is a limit, you know, the world is limited, and at one moment the market is also limited. But for the moment, you know, nobody want to see the limits and want to push, you know, this industry.
Don't we produce more consumers and don't we produce more money?
Money, I don't know. We produce more consumer because there are some markets we are not used to consume luxury that are now used to. You know, that's why we are not at the limit right now. But you know, but on the other hand, this consumer, I think, can also change their behavior quite quickly. You know, and we see that, for example, of course, when we think to a new luxury consumer, we think of the Chinese market. You know, and we see that. Some Chinese consumers are changing their mind, you know, wanting to more authenticity, more genuine things, to be reconnected with their roots and their culture and these kind of things. So there are new consumers, but maybe not for a long time, you know.
Can I ask you something? Do you have any current example of creatives that they were able to implement technology very cleverly within their collections? For example, you mentioned McQueen. For me, the cut of McQueen is almost like, you know, McQueen, Mugler, Alaya. You know, the engineering of the garment is so strong that you feel it was...
And Alaya was a very good example, because Alaya, it was a lot of artisan work, you know, and a lot of handwork and everything. But on the other hand, a lot of working with the fabric industry, with the knitting industry, and using, you know, new kind of technology to develop new kind of material. And so it was the perfect, I would say, a mix of something very human and something very technological. But I would say now, the fashion industry is already made by a robot, not for the garment production part, because maybe we can discuss that after, it's too difficult, but for the fabric industry, you know, most of the fabric now are made by robots, you know. I don't know if you have visited, a weaving factory soon, yet. huge rooms with dozens of machines that just works alone, with just one guy, following them, because of course robots don't like issue or something like that. But otherwise, they can, weave kilometers of fabrics alone, That's robots,
Do you believe that basic key items like jackets, trousers, denim, underwear will be eventually manufactured by robotics?
Manufacturing now, it's still an issue, because robots don't like supple fabrics, And the problem also is robots, they are made to do all the time the same task, Or fashion, it's changed so quickly that, of course you can have the idea that, sewing a sleeve, it's all the time the same. But I mean, if the sleeve is here, start here or here, if it's pleated or not, it's totally different way to sew. So robots, for the moment, don't know how to do that. So now there are, of course, for example, in manufacturing, there are a lot of robots in the jean industry because, I mean, in jeanswear you can change, of course, the shape and everything, but there are some parts which are all always the same, So robot, for example, to sew the pockets and something. I mean, some robots can do that very fast and very well. And we can imagine that T-shirt could be also,
But that's my question, is these very generic products that they are about sweatshop labor, how in the name of sustainability they can transform into factories that they can produce millions of T-shirts every day and then leave emerging markets or developing markets without working power?
I mean, it's first, it doesn't exist yet, because even sewing something very basic as a T-shirt, there is no robot able to do that, There is one thing which calls Subo, which has been developed by American engineer, and he had the idea, because once again, robots are not comfortable with supple material, Robot can build car and everything because it's metal, stiff, it's easy. With a garment, it's more difficult for them. So he had the idea to put, the fabrics into a kind of resin to make it stiff, and like a piece of metal. And after, the robots are quite comfortable and they can sew them together. So there is an experience. I have a video of that. For the moment, so it works, but if you see the T-shirt at the end, nobody wants to buy this T-shirt even at €1, because it's for the moment. So maybe in the future it can be improved. We can imagine, but for the moment, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Now, if it happened in the future, I mean, of course, we can say, of course, all these, country like Bangladesh, Vietnam, which economy is based for a big part on this, basic manufacturing industry, they will have trouble. On the other hand, when you see how these people are work in this company, factories and everything, maybe it's, it make them free, to avoid them to do this terrible, kind of work, So I don't know what we say. Of course, for the moment they make money with that, but could we imagine that they could make money with something a bit more interesting, funny?
Or agriculture.
That could be a solution. So I would say manufacturing in, I think students who are here, know that when you have time, making a garment by your hand, when you have time, when it's perfectly designed, it's something very exciting and everything. Doing, when you have to sew, 100 T-shirts per day very quickly, it's being a slave, So not sure that it's good things to continue to use people to work like that, So.
No, that's a very interesting pass, because the idea of slave and what is the luxury industry today and who is the slave? Is it the consumer or is it the creator? How would you define the luxury industry today with all this huge distribution, thousands,
yes, but I would say consumers are slaves of their desire. So So yes, we can consider they are slaves, and of course, the fashion brands, they do everything, to create this desire and to play with the psychology of people and everything. On the other hand, everybody is free and can be stronger than the brand and decide not to consume or to consume exactly what you want and these kind of things. So I don't know if we can. I mean, if we consider them as slaves, is that we consider that people are not free, and are not, I would say, adult enough to control their desire. What I don't think.
Are they? What do
I
you
hope
think?
so.
If they were adults, we wouldn't have so many billions of dollars flying around for acquisitions on fashion
it's true.
brands.
On the other hand, if we are here, I think it's because we like fashion, and of course there is first there is a cultural part of fashion, and there is also a fun part of fashion,
Yes.
and so I would say consuming even luxury product is not totally negative, I think, because it's also what makes the life, more sparkling and these kind of things, Of course, it's what the problem is that if consuming that lead to treat some people in some other country like slaves, or to I don't know, to spend all your money and don't have enough money for your kids just because you are slaves of fashion, of course. But I think in our society, once again, a small proportion of fashion and luxury and consumption, I think is also a good part of the life,
It's like a glass of wine.
Exactly.
If you drink a couple of glasses, you're fine. You start drinking a couple of
Exactly.
bottles,
Exactly.
you're an alcoholic.
Yeah, exactly.
Better get, find solution to it. And could you tell us a little bit, because you have a vast experience, your work experience is truly impressive. How do you see from 2020, because I think there is a milestone closing a decade that is going to be a very, very controversial decade with all the things that happen. How would you see the future of fashion overall? Because fashion used to be, something very subcultural, producing emotion, the mirror of society. We dress, we put our camouflage, we're going out in the world. What do you think is going to happen, from now until 2020? What is your prediction of the industry?
It's always
overall?
difficult to predict because I don't see the future into
In the
bottle of water, so it's hard to say. What we can see now is that there are different direction. I think there is a direction for overconsumption, and I don't think it will stop right now. That's true for luxury, but also for mass market and everything. And I think it will continue because there is, in some part of the world, this ability to consume is quite new, and so people want also to experiment that, and so that's one direction, and I think the future of Zara and LVMH and is beautiful for the next 20 years. After, there is the opposite direction, because we see that a lot of consumers are really more and more aware of environment, this idea of ethic and how people are treated in the fashion industry, want to maybe find themselves, and so want to create another relationship with this idea of consumption, and especially with a garment which is linked to your body, your personality, and everything. So want to find this kind of authenticity with the garment they buy and everything. And there is also now this kind of utopia of technology, creating new different kind of garment, making them in a very different way, using new tools and everything. And it's three direction, I don't know if which one will be the stronger. I would say I hope that the second one would be the most important. I'm not sure, really. And I think we'll see these three dimensions. What we can see that, if you look at the past of if you look at the fashion history, is that especially in the 20th century, fashion was connected with one society and was very, I would say, a bit dictatorial, Now, there are more and more many different trends at the same moment, many different ways to consume, many different segments of the market, and fashion becomes more and more diverse, you know. And I think if there is one direction, is that, you know, more and more diversity, you know, and that fashion will be there will be different kind of brand connected to different way of living and different vision of the evolution of the world, you know. I think
Super.
so. Yeah.
Well, in my question is either identical hybrids of questionable origins or unique individuality with an eye on distinctive authenticity and innovation. So I guess it's the second, yes. Well, it's the only way to go forward. And in fashion, we always know that there's a big trend going on. You're bound to have completely the opposite rising up.
Yeah.
Great.
The thing is that now, maybe what has changed is that fashion is more and more an industry and need more and more money, and it's now a kind of financial industry and everything. And I think they are a strong, you know, there are new designers who want to come back maybe, or to create a new kind of more authentic fashion thing. The problem is that they don't attract money, you know, at the moment, and so maybe it will be more difficult for them than, you know, this idea of a fast industry and kind of things, you know, at the moment. But you know, it's also up to the consumer, you know, to decide.
Don't you think there is a fashion fatigue?
Yes, because
there is a moment that we need to like.
I don't know, you know, and especially when you look at the fashion weeks, you know, I just check every, you know, not every, but a lot of show from New York Fashion Week. It's boring. Didn't see anything, you know, exciting. Just check, you know, Milan Fashion Week. Didn't see nothing, you know. London, because they are smaller designers, so they are quite interesting.
But Brexit
things.
is upon them. So
Exactly. To that, you know. And now we are waiting for Paris, you know, with a lot of, you know, I don't know, hope and everything. But you know, the two first day when you see Dior. No, where is fashion? You know, Saint Laurent, where is fashion? They are
Everybody's talking about the dancers.
Exactly.
So that's something.
So yes.
Circus has dancers, but anyway.
And so we can see that in this, especially in these luxury brands, there is a kind, as you say, a kind of fatigue, you know, and because they have to, you know, continue to make money, and so they don't want to take risk. And so nothing exciting, you know. So and fashion is also made of excitement, you know. So
let's wait until the end of the week. Excellent.